When you fall in love and decide to blend your families, you think about a lot of things.
The kids, the relationship, the future.
What you don't always think about,
Is all the stuff.
and we don't just mean furniture.
We mean everything two fully lived lives bring through the front door. And what happens when it all lands in the same house? Hey guys, we're Chris and Casey from Our Family Rescue.
We have real conversations about blended family life. The great parts, the hard parts, the messy parts, and how to get through them all without it costing you your marriage.
Because when the marriage is healthy, the whole family benefits.
And when the marriage starts struggling, the kids feel that too. And we've learned that the hard way.
We're not therapists or counselors. We're a couple who's lived this.
We both grew up in blended families and then ended up building one of our own.
When we got together, we brought 6 kids under one roof, different ages, personalities, and needs.
And like most couples, we thought love would make it all come together.
It didn't.
We went through seasons of tension, exhaustion, and feeling completely overwhelmed.
But our commitment to God, to each other, and to our family is what carried us through.
And over time, we learned what actually works and what doesn't.
That's why we started Our Family Rescue.
Because when we were going through it, we felt alone, and we don't want any other families to feel that way.
We will share personal stories, but just so you know, we keep all of our kids' details private.
But we will always tell you how it felt from our side, and honestly, that's the most important part anyway, right?
Of course. This is part 1 of a 2-part series on baggage. Today we're talking about the literal, physical, practical baggage that 2 people bring into a blended family. And next time, we're getting into the emotional side of it, which is a whole nother conversation.
In your first marriage, you probably started pretty small, young, not a lot of money, not a lot of stuff.
You built everything together over time. The furniture, the finances, the traditions. You created it all from scratch as a team.
But in a blended family, that's not what happens. Usually, you don't get to start from scratch.
You show up with everything. 2 of almost everything, actually, and it all has to somehow fit physically, financially, logistically, under one roof.
And nobody really prepares you for what that actually feels like.
Think of it like a merger of 2 companies. Each one has its own assets, its own debts, its own way of doing things. Some of what each brings to the table is really valuable. Some of it, not so much. And the work of blending it isn't romantic. It's deeply practical.
And if you go into it only thinking about love and not thinking about the logistics will catch you off guard every single time.
I'll be honest about something that I'm a little embarrassed to admit, because looking back, I can see how fixated I was on things that ultimately didn't matter as much as I made them. When Chris and I got together, I moved my children into his home he had already been living in, which meant a lot of his previous life was already there, things that had been left behind. And I found myself surrounded by constant reminders that another life had happened in that house before mine. I was cooking with her pots and pans, loading her dishes into the dishwasher, driving the family vehicle she used to drive, rearranging cabinets that she had organized, sitting on the same furniture. And I want to be clear, nobody was doing anything wrong. This was just the reality of 2 people merging their lives when starting completely over financially wasn't an option. But in my head, it was really loud. And then our first Christmas together arrived. We decided as a family that we were going to decorate the house together, which sounded beautiful in theory. And then I started opening boxes of decorations, and I realized they weren't mine. They were hers. Her ornaments, her garland, her family's traditions packed away in boxes that were now sitting in my living room. And I remember standing there in the middle of it all, trying to hold it all together while the kids were excited and Chris was pulling out lights. I was just struggling quietly, because how do you explain to anyone without that sounding completely unreasonable? But here's what I wasn't thinking about in that moment. The kids were trying to hold on to those memories at the exact same time that I was trying to move past them. Those decorations meant something to them. And I had brought my own boxes too, my own ornaments, my own traditions, my own reminders of a life before this one. I just hadn't been willing to see it that way. What changed things for me was talking to Chris about it. I mean, really talking, telling him what I was feeling without trying to make it sound rational. And he listened. He was genuinely understanding in a way I didn't expect. And then he shared his feelings about some of the things that I had brought into their home. Things I'd never even considered might be an adjustment for him and his kids. Hearing his perspective stopped me in my tracks because I realized that I'd been so focused on what was hard for me, I hadn't once stopped to think about what was hard for them. New people had come into their home and started changing everything, and that was a loss for them too. And suddenly, the pots and pans didn't seem like such a big deal anymore.
I want to zoom out a little and talk about the bigger picture of what it means to merge two fully established lives. Because I think a lot of couples underestimate just how much is actually involved. When you got married the first time, you were probably building from the ground up. You accumulated things together. You made financial decisions together. You created routines and systems together as you went. But when you enter a blended family, both people are showing up already fully loaded. You have furniture and they have theirs. You have your car and they have theirs. You have your debt and they have theirs. You have your way of running a household and they have a completely different way that worked just fine in their previous life. And then there are the kids' commitments. Sports, music, dance, tutoring, private school. These things don't pause because you've started a new chapter. They come with the package and they cost money and they cost time. And when you multiply that across 6 kids with 6 different sets of needs and schedules, you feel it. We were juggling careers, school pickups, practices, cooking, cleaning, laundry, church, all while trying to figure out how to blend 2 households that had each been running completely separately before. Nobody sat us down and said, "Hey, have you actually talked through all of this?" And that's part of why we built our program the way we did, because these conversations need to happen before you're standing in the middle of them, wondering why everything feels so hard. The couples who navigate this well are the ones who go into it with their eyes open, who treat the merging of their lives with the same intentionality they'd bring to any major life decision, who talk about the finances honestly, the debt, the expenses, the financial obligations that are coming along for the ride, who acknowledge that this is complicated and decide to face it together as a team instead of being blindsided by it separately. Love is absolutely the foundation. But love without a plan is just a feeling. And feelings alone won't get you through the logistics of blending 2 fully established lives.
Looking back, I'm really glad I talked to Chris instead of just stewing in it. Because the moment we started being honest with each other about what was hard, we stopped feeling like we were on opposite sides of the problem.
And we were able to start focusing on what actually mattered. Not the stuff, but the family we were building with whatever stuff we had.
We knew we'd eventually get new furniture, new traditions, new things that were ours. But in the meantime, we had each other and we had these kids. And that was more than any fresh start that any bank account could have bought us.
The stuff is temporary. The family is forever. So how do you actually navigate this well?
Well, first, you have the practical conversations before you need to have them. Talk about the finances openly and honestly. The assets, the debts, the monthly commitments, all of it. Nothing should be a surprise after you've made the commitment.
And when things do come up that you didn't anticipate, and they will, bring it to each other quickly. Don't let it sit and quietly build into something bigger than it needs to be.
Secondly, give each other grace around the stuff. Understand that both of you have emotional attachments to things that might not make complete logical sense. That's okay. Those feelings are real. Honor them in each other, even when you don't fully understand them.
And be willing to compromise. Maybe her grandmother's painting doesn't fit in the new living room. Maybe his holiday traditions look different than yours. You don't have to throw everything out, but you do have to be willing to blend, which means neither of you gets everything exactly the way it was before.
And third, start creating things that are yours together. New traditions, new memories, new things you pick out together. The more that you build something that belongs to this family, the less weight the old stuff carries.
Because eventually this home stops feeling like a combination of 2 previous lives and starts feeling like your new life together. But that takes time, and it takes intention, and it takes a whole lot of grace with each other along the way.
Here's the marriage piece that we really want you to hear. The practical stuff, the finances, the furniture, the schedules, all of it, has a way of creating tension in your marriage if you don't face it together as a team.
Because when you're stressed about money or overwhelmed by the logistics or quietly bothered by something in your home that reminds you of someone else's life, that stress doesn't stay contained. It bleeds into how you talk to each other, how patient you are with each other, how connected you feel.
And there's a reason why second marriages end in divorce at an even higher rate than first marriages. A lot of it comes down to this: couples fall in love, but don't do the practical work of honestly preparing for everything that comes with a blended family.
So do that work together before the Christmas decorations come out of the boxes.
Talk about what you're each bringing to the table, the good and the not so good. Create a plan for the finances, divide the responsibilities in a way that feels fair, and check in with each other regularly about how it's all going.
And when something is bothering you about the practical side of your blended life, say it. Not to your kids, not to your friends, to your spouse. They're the only other person who's living this with you, and they deserve the chance to help.
Because that's what this is supposed to be. Not two separate people managing two separate lives under one roof, but one team building a family together.
If any of this felt familiar, if you felt the weight of merging two lives and wondered how other couples get through it, you're not alone.
This is one of the most common pressure points in blended families, and most couples are trying to navigate it without anyone ever helping them think through it.
That's exactly why we built Blended Family Survival Training the way we did. It's designed to walk you through these exact conversations, step by step, with the right questions and the right framework to help you and your spouse to get on the same page.
And if you want to see whether it's the right fit for your family, grab the free starter kit. No pressure, no commitment, just a starting point that could change everything.
When you grab the free starter kit, you'll also get access to a video walkthrough of the full course, so you can see exactly what's inside before you decide anything.
Just go to ourfamilyrescue.com. The link is right here in the description.
And if this video resonated with you, please hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because part 2 of this series is coming next, and you're going to want to see it.
We're going beyond the physical stuff next time and into the emotional baggage we carry from our past relationships into our new ones. The fears, the triggers, the wounds that always show up in ways you don't expect.
That one hits different. Don't miss it.
We post regularly, and every single video is a real, honest conversation about what it actually takes to build a strong, healthy marriage in a blended family.
We're not pretending we have it all figured out, but we've been through it, and we're here to walk through it with you.
Thanks for tuning in. We are really glad you're here.